Good morning and welcome everyone to the Women's Empower Network. I have another amazing woman here with us today, and it's, how do you say it, Aidna?
Einav.
Einav. And I'm so excited to share her with you, and she's going to tell us about her story and what got her on this journey that she's on. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And hello, everyone. Uh, right. So my story. What am I doing? So I guess I my normal life before I became what I am doing now was in IT. So a long time ago, I was what they call a user experience designer, and I was mostly, in IT, looking after websites and systems and helping making them more friendly and easy to use. And I loved that job. It was a very nice one. But slowly, I realized more and more that actually it wasn't what I was, meant to do. It wasn't what I came here to do. And then after some time, when there was too much politics that was involved, I was like, all right, let me go back to the drawing board. Let me figure out how I can connect with people and how I can have more meaningful conversations with people. And with that in mind, I went to do my coaching and mentoring course, and that was in 2017. And there, it was a very interesting course for sure. But I was also doing my master practitioner of NLP there. And what happened was that our teachers demonstrated the mind-body connection. They randomly and amazingly, one of my peers had chronic neck pain that she was carrying around for about 14 years, always level like 7 out of 10. And so just by having a conversation with her for about 2 hours, asking about emotions, asking what happened then, what happened now, in 2 hours, the neck pain was gone forever, never to come back. And I was like, how come not everyone is talking about this? This is incredible. I mean, it's so amazing. Now, I don't know why it impacted me so much. I didn't have healing story of myself, of my own, but I was so inspired by that. And I was like, this this is what I need to do. I guess this is my calling. And so when I finished my training, I went, of course, to my, our friends' Facebook, and I started going into groups and saying, hey, I just learned this amazing thing. Let's heal. But very quickly, I made some women very, very angry. Not because I was rude, but because they were very much attached to to whatever they were going through. And one of them said, it took me such a long time to convince my doctors and my family that there was something wrong with me. And now here you are wanting to just heal me. It was, and I understood that people sometimes take their conditions, as part of their identity levels, like who they are. And I understood that I couldn't just come here and be excited about healing. I needed to be more, considerate to their journey. And then I realized that I wasn't ready for all of that. So I said, okay, and I bowed out, and I just then I called myself empowering confidence and empowerment coach. And I was really excited to talk to people about um, how to recognize what voice they were listening to, if it's the voice of fear, the negative voice, or the unconscious mind, the soul, the inner guidance system and all of that. This is still something that I'm using today, but and even though that part of the journey was very fascinating, 3 years ago, something like that, the universe said to me, basically, it's time. And it did so by sending me my first chronic pain client. And this guy had chronic pain levels 9, 10 out of 10 constantly. There's no relief for him. He was really going through a lot. And at that time, I just had my coaching, skills, nothing else. But really just in conversation by talking about the negative voice and the fears and the patterns and, hopes and conditionings, all of that. His pain level already in the first session went down, from 10 to 8. for him, that was a huge relief. You know, he could see something that was shifting that he couldn't see before. So, of course, we continued walking together, and of course, today is completely pain-free. Um, and and that was, for me, it was like, I guess I'm ready. So thank you, thank you, Matt. And and then I was thinking, then I came across the healing modalities that I'm using now in my practice. And so that's the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code. And when I work with my clients now, um, and now I mainly work with people suffering from chronic pain and chronic illness, I use a combination of my alignment coaching, which is negative voice, unconscious mind, all of that, and also using the energy healing to help clear blockages from the energy field, which helps people to feel better, to reduce pain, to release symptoms completely. So, in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And you know what, it's coming to mind is I appreciate that when you got that pushback, when people were connecting their identity to their illness and committed to having that illness, that it didn't blow you out of the water, that you kept going.
Yes, yes. I had it at the back of my mind, because it was it really blew my mind. It was so profound, the connection that I made to that healing story. Um, and it was really funny because then when I moved into the alignment coaching and the energy healing, it felt so good. It felt like I really did come home, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because it definitely felt like I was, it was my calling. And it was very interesting to recognize that I could actually use everything that I said until now, and it made so much sense in actual healing journeys of people, not just the healing from trauma and anxiety, depression, and other stuff like that. So yeah, it's for me definitely fascinating.
Well, it is when we get into the energy, we'll call it energy work, you know, especially moving from traditional. It does seem pretty woo-woo when you don't understand it. Um,
Yeah.
so does a person need to, who's only done like traditional type healing, do they really need to have an understanding or a belief about this to work, or do they just need to be open?
They do just need to be open, and of course, I always at any opportunity, I tell them about my mom, who definitely doesn't believe in all of these things. But still, every time I walk on her, and of course it works, she's like, I don't know how you did it, but don't know how you did it. So she's kind of like not believing, but so having to see that yes, it worked. So it's really funny. But yeah, my mom is one number one non-believer that allows me to do the work and enjoys the benefits. But you see, there's something that I always say, that I can't go too down the chain, and so I don't convince people that my methods work. I don't convince them that there's an alternative to traditional, not traditional, but Western medicine, and the traditional role of the doctors. But because then I know that, just like these women of Facebook, they're too attached to whatever they're going through. They haven't realized yet that there is another solution. And so now I'm waiting for people to have gone far enough in the healing journey to realize that actually a lot of the time the Western medicine, it's fantastic for for what it does for acute pain, but when it comes to chronic conditions, they're not very helpful. Um, and when they understand that, they say, okay, so what does work? Because if it worked for one person, it can work for another. So that's when people usually come to me. They don't need to understand it too much, because I explain everything that I can explain. I really just need them to be open enough to try it, and usually they see because of the conversations, they start to see how much they're operating from fears and limitations. And then I start to teach them how to, not be so excited or inviting of the negative voice, but actually to start recognizing and trusting the inner wisdom. So already after the first session, people start seeing and feeling for themselves that they have more, it's more expansion, there's more flow in how they show up to life. And then add to that all the clearing that I do for them, then they start having reduction of pain, or the symptoms start looking differently. So and then they start believing.
And when you talk about clearing, are we talking about like clearing um, old, what are we clearing? Let me ask it that way.
Yeah. So the methods I used, like I mentioned earlier, they're called, there's 3 different ones, but they're all based on the same idea. So they are the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code. The emotion code means that because we're all energy, when we go through emotional events or trauma that we can't process, the energy of the emotions become trapped in our bodies. Every emotion has a size and a shape, and they're pressing on our glands and organs, and that brings to the discomfort that we are feeling. So with the emotion code, I have a list of 60 emotions. And with muscle testing, I connect with the person's subconscious mind. And with muscle testing, I go through the list and seeing what emotions I need to clear. So I find, say, it's anxiety from age 5. Okay, we don't need that anymore. And then I clear it, and then I find the next one. So it's very fast. There is something more beautiful in the emotion code, which is called the heart wall. The heart wall is basically when the subconscious mind says, well, you're clearly going through something and you're too fragile, and I need to protect you in some way. In the same way as if you go into a very loud room, you will cover your ears. That's what the subconscious mind is trying to do with us, roaming around the world. So then it says the only thing I can do is to grab trapped emotions from around the body and build a wall around the heart. So the good news is that now we are more protected. We don't feel the events in the same way as we would if we didn't have this wall. But on the not so good side, we live from behind a wall. So now we feel more isolated, or maybe our energy is low. Maybe we feel darkness. Maybe that we are, feel like an outsider. There's all of different things that we are experiencing. So when I connect with people, sometimes I will just release trapped emotions, but much more profoundly, when I release the heart wall emotions, they feel, they feel light, they feel calm, they feel like things happen in life, but they don't care about them in the same way as before. So heart wall emotions are really, really fascinating, and the feel, the difference is very profound. So this is just the emotion code. Then we have the body code. In the body code, we go a little bit deeper. So I have an app. I could walk from a book, but I have an app. And there I find actually what is the underlying cause of this thing that you are experiencing. So say someone, with headaches, chronic headaches maybe, then I want to see what can I release to make it better. So maybe there are toxins in the body, or maybe there are misalignments that we need to, organs or glands that we need to reset, or maybe the chakras, or maybe, clashes between the conscious mind or unconscious mind. So in the same way of using the muscle testing, I find out what I need to find, whatever I need to clear, and then I clear them. So that's the body code in a nutshell. And then the belief code is really finding out a whole belief systems that are holding us back physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. So someone might come and say, I don't believe I'm ever going to heal. And I say, perfect. Come into my office. And then we find a belief system. We clear all of it. So it's not just the normal limiting belief that we all aware of, like, I repel money, or I'll never find the right person, this kind of thing that we are aware of. Now we're actually going way, way deeper into the unconscious level, and we release not just the one, it's the actual system. So when we finish releasing everything, the change is again very profound, because everything that was holding you back in that area is no longer there, no longer there. Yeah. So these are the energy healing modalities that I use.
I love that. I love that. I mean, my own way of expressing it is that our natural state is well-being. And when we're not in alignment, then it shows up in the body, or it shows up in our life, which has given us clues to like pointers. I think of them as pointers as to where the answer might be to resolve the issue that's coming up.
Yeah, I believe in that completely. And it is very interesting, because people sometimes, like I said earlier on in the chain, people might still be very much in victimhood, or really, why me, and why that, and why now, and all of these questions. And then when they go into the Western medicine world, and they come up with, I don't know, or try this, or we haven't had this, all of this, it's all fear-based.
Right.
And when we look to the other side and we say, hey, one of my favorite questions is always, how come this is happening right now? And we know that in the universe, there is endless, possibilities and things that can happen to us or for us at any given moment. But if this happened for me right now, it must mean that there is something that I need to learn from it. Otherwise, I would be given a different experience. And so this is really the invitation to say, okay, what am I doing? In what way am I showing up to the world that is not in my powers? Where am I giving away my powers? Where am I believing that I don't have choices? Where am I playing small? We have all of these different things to look at, but then when we understand it, then we can do differently. And when we do differently, we no longer need to have the condition, because we get into this alignment. So when we are being diagnosed with something, or when we decide that there's probably another way to do things, these questions are really opening. They're very freeing as well, because we see that most of everything is emotionally based. So so of course, when it's an acute problem, it's definitely, go to the doctors, find out what's wrong, do whatever you can. But if it's gone into the chronic state, now we have to look at it from a really holistic place and see really how come this is happening for us right now.
Right. And that's a very significant word. It's happening for us, not to us.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about is when somebody's in the middle of it, the image that came to mind is like, the fish doesn't know it's in water. It's kind of like when you were talking about victimhood and stuff, you're in that soup of victimhood that you don't even know that there's something beyond that, or
Yeah.
that life just is that way, and that there's not an exit door or something, or you could come up for air.
Yes.
So what would you say to somebody who's they don't really know that they're the fish in the water yet, but they know that they're sick, they're just sick and tired of their life being the way it is.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone like that? How would you help them?
For me, really, the first kind of conversations that I'm having with all of my clients is to help them see what got them to that place. So we would have conversations about what happened just before the illness or condition came up. And a lot of the time there will be a lot of stress and a lot of unprocessed emotions that were coming up, or that were really, expertly pushed away. And then we will slowly start talking about really, how did we react at that time? It's definitely a reaction rather than a response. How did we react to all of that? And a lot of the time, it's really, even though we're going through some horrendous stuff, we keep saying, I'm fine, everything is okay, I'm okay. And then I help them see that actually they behaved as if they have no choice. And it's this thing that people say, I'm in a job that I really don't like, but it's the only thing I can to pay the bills, so I have no choice. Or I'm in a relationship that is really unhealthy for me, but I have to stay. So when people believe that they have no choice, and all they do is have conversations that are fear-based, then I help them to see that actually there is another side. And that's what I was saying earlier. When I help people see that they don't have to do something that they don't like, and I'm not talking about 100% jumps, because that never works really. But I say, what is one step that you can do differently already, and kind of having this permission to start seeing things from different perspective, they can start easing into that, and slowly they can really recognize all of the places where they really believe this negative voice that says, you know it's not a good idea, you're going to fail. If it was a good idea, someone else would have done it already. Or look at you, you've never managed anything in your life. A negative voice, right? We all have it. And so the conversation is very helpful to help them recognize that actually, first of all, they are in fear. They're definitely in this comfort zone that says, I'm too scared to even imagine that there is another way, because then people bring into the conversation the fear of change. And so I help them see that actually we don't do massive changes. These 100% changes, they're not working for anyone. But we want to start opening up this conversation, and let's talk about you know yes, the negative voice, and what do we have instead. Let's talk about what hat you're wearing when you're in limitations versus what hat you're wearing when you are in flow, and what does flow look like, and expansion. And a healing journey is definitely a journey, but it's so much nicer when there's two people going through that together. Sometimes I have clients that says, I had someone said, my wife said she doesn't believe I'm ever going to heal, and that was reassuring for him, because all of a sudden he didn't need to keep fighting her. And I was like, don't respond, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything, and and I had to say, well, yes, she doesn't believe, but I believe you can heal. I've had clients with your condition that have healed. Let's not allow this fear to come in. But when we are going through this together, I am there to really, to catch them, because there's so much fear throughout the journey, and so many doubts, and all of a sudden it's like I'm starting to move out of this comfort zone where I've been for such a long time. I'm scared. And I'm exactly there to say, I know, trust me, it's okay. Just one more step forward. So I really want to encourage people to recognize that if they know that they're in a place that they don't want to be, let's open up this conversation. I have a podcast where I bring people that healed themselves naturally from chronic conditions. And I really want to bring this message forward, so people know that even if one person managed to heal from their conditions naturally, they can also do it. And yeah, so
You know what,
kind of everything.
no, no, it's beautiful. And you know what kind of came up into my mind when you were talking, that I think so important, is having somebody who can help you walk the path. Because like the gentleman that you used as the example, and his wife didn't believe, is when you start to do that inner work and you start to change, people around you are invested in you staying the same, because that's predictable. And so how do you help people who don't have a positive reinforcement, because I can really imagine there being some strong pushback if somebody's actually doing something good for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. This happens a lot. So of course,
Right.
if you have someone there for you, then you can see the difference, you know. And even if you do have someone that is in your corner, sometimes this healing journey is really tiring because there's so much, you know, setbacks and, you know, yes, no's, uncertainties, all of that. So even if you have someone in your corner that really wants you to succeed, sometimes their fears come up and then you have to deal with that. But for sure, if you have people that are actively telling you it's never going to work and trying to, you know, to pull you down, then what I help them to see that this is what is happening. So when I help people to understand what the negative voice does, they can see it for themselves. They can also see it for these other people. And so in our conversation, I help them empower themselves, but also empower themselves against, you know, whoever is at home giving them all this, you know, negativity. And then there is this encouragement to either have the conversation, or if you can't support me the way I am, at least don't pile up all this negativity, or to really, you know, sometimes it really is about moving away from these toxic environments because, you know, maybe that's kind of what brought you here in the first place. But it really is about awareness of what is going on and how we can deal with it when things come up.
And I think it's really, really important to find positive support if it's not in your nucleus or your circle where you are, is to find your tribe or a coach or someone who can really support you, because change is scary. It is. I mean, you and I, we know firsthand, you know, but is it worth it? Heck yeah.
Completely. I mean, but the thing is that this is an interesting thing because change, when we think about change, we're thinking about the end result. And then from where we are right now, we can't see it. It's not on the horizon. We really don't know what it looks like. And then it's really scary because we imagine all of these really, you know, challenging things that are going to happen on this journey. But I always say that. I already said it 3 times. I'm going to say it the third time now.
That's good.
Change, we don't want to, you know, 100% changes because it means, you know, that you're not ready. I just want us to say, let's take the first step forward. And the first step forward is really by slowly changing how you see yourself or how you relate to yourself in the world and how you see things happening around you. And the first conversation I ever have with people is really going back to this negative voice and helping people see how much, you know, they're listening to this negative voice. And I say to them, the negative voice only has one job, and it is for you to make you do today exactly what you've done yesterday. So it doesn't care about anything. It doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't even know what you had for breakfast yesterday, but it wants to preserve you. It wants to protect you. So it says, well, hang on, is this a new thing or not? If it's new thing, forget it. We're not doing it. So, of course, if you are here now, been suffering for a while, a lot of it is really just because your negative voice needs you to be exactly where you are right now, where you were yesterday. And then we start bringing in this other voice, the unconscious mind, the soul, the, you know, inner guidance system. And that voice, the best job, of course, of the unconscious mind is that it has the blueprint of our best version, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So it all the time steers us in the right direction. So if our unconscious mind knows that change is good for us because it helps to get into that best version, it's all the time going to try and get us to do that with little subtle kind of you know, nudges in the right direction.
Right.
But
And the nudge could be being sick. It's like, hey, we're trying to get your attention here.
yes, yes. So the being sick is because you're going too far out on, you know, in the trajectory of away from your alignment. So if you can't get the message now, okay, let's do illness and get you to pause and reflect and then, yeah, get all the lessons. But when people understand that they have a voice that tries to protect them but keep them stuck, versus they have a voice that knows everything about them and really try to get them into the best version, all of a sudden it's so reassuring. And now the question is really, what are you listening to? And it's,
It
but
takes
this is always
practice.
conversation one.
I can imagine it takes practice to learn to disconnect from that negative voice you talk about that's repeating the pattern and keeping you stuck, and learning to trust the one that knows and knowing the difference.
It takes practice for sure. But I also like to say to people that the negative voice, I mean, I always say I'm the one to give it the worst reputation. And then I also admit that I have to give it credit as well, because if it's on automat, if I constantly want to do something, say, oh, too scared, I'm going to fail, it's not going to go very well, then I'm really stuck. Then I'm not doing anything. But if I want to do something and I think, oh, I'm feeling the fear, and I can say, okay, what am I scared about? What really is going on? And I am able to bring it into my conscious awareness and have this conversation with myself. Maybe there's a lot of unknowns and that really makes me uncomfortable, or maybe I'm not ready, maybe I'm not prepared. So when I listen to the negative voice, I can diffuse the fears because I understand them, so I take actions from them. So, and then of course the fear goes away because it's not scary anymore. Now I understand it. So I just want to help people to see that, pay attention. Pay attention to what is going on. You don't need to, we just want to dial down the negative conversation. We want to dial up the intuition and that feeling that actually we can't fail because our, unconscious mind really got us, always steering us in the right direction. And if we're listening to the unconscious mind, there's no failure. We're always going to exactly where we need to be. So it's wonderful for people when they come from that fearful mindset, and they start understanding and seeing for themselves that there is something, a voice inside of them that is 100% there for them. It changes everything. So then they find the courage to continue to move on to the next step, to let go of some of the things that no longer serves them.
Right. No, exactly. This is beautiful, and I'm so glad that you heeded the call and that you took the training and found what your purpose was in your calling, to be such a great service to everybody. And I'm wondering if there's any last words of wisdom you would like to share before we close today.
The one thing that came to my mind as you were saying that is a little reminder for people about how pain comes to be. So the brain is our pain center. We never feel pain. If I broke my arm, the pain is not coming from my arm. The pain comes from my brain, because the brain says something is going on there. I need you to pay attention. Please go and get a cast. The problem is that after the first 3 months of healing, if the body has not healed itself after 3 months, then it goes into the chronic state. But the purpose of the pain is really to tell the body that there is something that needs to go and I need to go in and go to the doctor, basically. So if after 3 months, when the body no longer is not healing itself, then there is no point for the pain, basically, because the message, the point of the pain is already gone. So the chronic pain is, in a sense, basically a situation where the brain is not actually responding to an actual thing that is wrong with us. It's actually responding to fear and anxiety that we have around the pain, whatever is going on. So basically, if you are in chronic pain, come and have this conversation, because it is very possible that you are suffering so much for a simple mistake, something that we can really treat very quite easily, really. So I'm not sure if
No, that's beautiful. It's amazing. And I wanted to let everybody know I'm so glad you were here with us today. And we're going to make sure that Avna, that we, above this interview, we will put how you can get in touch with her. So if you want to have a conversation with her or talk to her more about your particular challenge that you might be having. I can't thank you enough for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. It was lovely.